Let's welcome to the show now Austin Price, Volquest. He joins us thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. And Austin, as we were discussing a moment ago, Lance Hurd is the biggest topic right now for Tennessee in the transfer portal. What are you hearing with Tennessee's pursuit of Hurd, the transfer from LSU?
Been a lot of dialogue, guys, between the last 36 to 48 hours. Everything was trending well as of yesterday. Been kind of quiet today. I do think, just kind of letting this whole thing play out and, kind of seeing where it goes. But it doesn't feel like he'll take any visits based off everybody I've talked to this weekend, which means it's kind of down to Tennessee, Oklahoma, and, we'll see what he decides to do. But like I said, Tennessee's had a lot of dialogue with Lance and, his kind of team of people the last 36 hours or so, and it's all been very, very productive.
Any idea of, when he's going to officially make a decision?
I don't think that there's, any kind of talk about when. I think that at least be something that happens pretty quick. Most of these kids want to announce through Hayes Fawcett, and Hayes, works for On3 and, does a really nice job of making those edits for kids. And so sometimes it's dictated by him. I don't think that's the case here. I think this is something where, it's, getting close, but I don't think a final decision has been made at this point. But again, like I said, Tennessee's, had a lot of productive conversations with Lance and his family the last day or so.
So obviously Lance playing the tackle position. If you're able to get him, great. But is there a plan that you heard of about the guard spot for Tennessee?
As of right now, Jason, no. I mean, they had in, Armaje Reed-Adams last weekend, and he ended up deciding to go to Texas A&M, which is, he's from the state of Texas, the Kansas transfer. And, so no, as of right now, there's no planned visitors that are guards. I would say you're looking probably, at the spring wave before they are able to potentially add anybody that would be on the offensive interior, which makes it a big spring for Jackson Lampley, who's coming off a really solid bowl game. Makes it a big spring for, Andre Keurig, who obviously missed the back part of the year. So without Javonte Spraggins, those guys will need to step up. And I think Spraggins will be able to do some things in spring, but, how much are they really going to let, Spraggs do is the question. I don't think it really behooves them to play him a whole lot. They need to see what they have in some of these younger linemen like Bison Lang and, Sham Umarov and players like that.
Austin Price is with us, Volquest.com, covering Tennessee football, recruiting, the transfer portal as well. Can you handicap where things might stand with Lance Hurd if it does come down to Tennessee versus Oklahoma? And how important is he, do you think, to Josh Heupel and Tennessee's staff to try to get in to help with the tackle position right away?
Well, obviously Tennessee needs tackles. That's been the case. It's, gotten even more kind of magnified with Gerald Mincey deciding to go, look at another transfer. And so, I think Lance Hurd's very important. But I would tell you that, Percy Lewis, the Mississippi State transfer that's supposed to be in here this weekend, I think he's important. Like, I don't think you can take anything for granted here because, again, even a guy like John Campbell, because Mincey left, he could leave, right? Like, not now, but he could leave after spring. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm just saying, like, you have to go out and get as many tackle bodies as you can get because at the end of the day, like you saw this past year at certain positions, you get, one or two injuries to a certain, group and it alters everything you're doing. So, for my liking, like you take as many as you can get. So Hurd is extremely important, but I would tell you that Percy Lewis is, John Campbell is, Dane Davis is. Like, it's not just players in the portal; it's players that are still on your roster.
Austin Price, Volquest.com. There was a moment when Gerald Mincey was going to come back, announced he was coming back, and then announced that he was transferring. What kind of happened there with Mincey, you think?
Well, it's pretty simple. They changed the rule and made it where kids that had transferred once could transfer a second time without penalty, and So then it comes back into, NIL leveraging and, those type things. And, I think that's kind of the direction Gerald wanted to go. He was either going to turn pro, which probably wouldn't have been a wise move for Gerald, or he was going to be back at Tennessee. And then once they changed that rule, Jason, like it opened up Pandora's box. And I mean, people have heard me, I think I've said it on this show. I know I've said it on, Ramon's show in Nashville. Like, the unlimited transfer is, to me, the real death of college sports. It's not the NIL. I think that's fantastic for the kids. It's not the transfer portal. I think it's fantastic for kids to be able to, leave once. But when you can do it every year, it's where it gets dicey, and it's what's going to push, college coaches either into something else or into the NFL or so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think it'll lead to a lot of players making bad choices too.
Yeah.
It's at some point finding a spot and finding a home and building something out is going to be important for them.
Yeah, it doesn't help the high school kids either.
Right. Jalen McMurray, defensive back, transfer from Temple. What can you tell us about him? The pursuit, their third DB in the transfer portal to commit to Tennessee. That happening yesterday.
Kid can really run. Obviously, has got some experience. Played 2.5 years or so at Temple, and he is not the biggest guy, probably about 5'10", 170, but can really scoot and just experience. I think the biggest thing Tennessee needed was kind of some more quality bodies in the back end. They really like Ricky Gibson, Matthews, Conyers. They like those young kids they have, but they don't have a ton of experience. Now, I would argue they need to get the experience. You can't just keep bringing in guys from the transfer portal. But I think because Tennessee had lost so many bodies in the back end, they probably needed to add a couple, and they've done that. With the kid from MTSU, Jacoby, and Jacoby Thomas, and then obviously Jermod McCoy, and now Jalen McMurray kind of adds to that role as well. Could he play nickel? Is he a corner? I don't know if he is big enough and physical enough to play inside at nickel, but we'll see.
Hey, also you mentioned Percy Lewis, tackle transfer from Mississippi State. Any idea how his decision might be affected by what Lance Hurd decides to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it could be impacted. The problem is everybody wants to play left tackle, and only one person can, right? So, I think part of the that's part of the hang-up of a lot of these offensive linemen. Diego Pounds wants to play left tackle. Percy Lewis wants to play left tackle. Lance Hurd wants to play left tackle. John Campbell is your left tackle. You've seen guys move around. If you go back 2 years ago, when Gerald Mincy came in, Darnell Wright moved to right tackle, and ended up being a top 10 pick. You go back to last year, John Campbell comes in. Gerald Mincy reluctantly moved to right tackle. So I think the biggest thing, kids get too hung up, and the people around kids get too hung up in the whole, like, left tackle, franchise left tackle. No, the truth is there's only a couple of actually really franchise left tackles, right? Like, I think, people get too caught up in the wrong things. I mean, Darnell Wright started every game for the Bears, as a candidate for NFL Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, as a right tackle, and was a top 10 pick.
Yep.
He's not feeling any effects of moving to the right side. But again, people get real hung up on the perception of left tackle versus right tackle.
If and this goes back to the people that are in these players' ear, like, if you're not a left tackle, you don't want to play left tackle because you're going to get exposed and get beat. And then you may not get drafted where you want to be at all, because they're going to say, well, you can't play tackle at all, period. We don't want you left tackle or right tackle. So you made a really good point, Austin. I mean, there's some really bad advice going around.
Yeah, and again, kids are just getting pulled every direction, Jason, by, high school coaches, 7-on-7 coaches, mom, dad, uncle, friends. And I feel bad for a lot of these kids. I mean, even the ones that have really good, people around them. I mean, it's still a lot for a 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old to kind of take in. And, you don't want to make the wrong decision, and you've got all these different things in your ear, and I mean, it's a lot to handle. I mean, it's almost like changing jobs, so to speak. And like when you change jobs or whatever, like I think there's a I don't want to say fear, but the unknown is rough, and so like I think that most kids just want to stick with what they know, and I think that's kind of where you end up in a lot of these situations with.
A couple more things. Austin Price, Volquest.com is with us. Thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Quarterback George MacIntyre, big-time player in the 25 class. Latest on where things stand with him, both in his thinking and maybe a timeline for commitment.
Well, nothing's changed for me. I still feel like Tennessee's done the best job in this recruitment. They've done a really good job with George. He has not announced the decision date yet, but rubber's meeting the road, really soon. I don't know if it'll happen before I'm on this show a week from now, but I do think that, I would be stunned if I'm with you in 2 weeks and we're not talking about the decision of George MacIntyre. So, I think Tennessee's done a really nice job here. He really likes Josh Heupel. I think his relationship with Joey Halsley's grown a lot. And, I think that, Tennessee has really positioned themselves about as well as you can for George.
And then, Swain, we like to ask him for over-under on commitments in a month. Is there an over-under number, Austin, we should pay attention to on days before Lance Hurd makes his final decision?
I don't know. I mean, the kid doesn't really talk. He didn't talk in the recruiting process. He doesn't really talk now. I mean,
That's cool.
Like somebody said on our board yesterday, they're like, well, every school feels good. And I'm like, well, yeah, because Lance Hurd doesn't talk. And so every media guy that's covering this is getting their side and not much else. I mean, it kind of is what it is. Like Lance he does not really do a lot of the interview stuff. And, apparently, and again, I've never talked to the kid, talked to people around the kid. Apparently his personality is fantastic. So if he ends up here, I'm interested to just kind of get to know this kid and kind of, figure out what makes him tick, because I do hear his personality's pretty neat. But no, there's no over-under, because it literally could happen this afternoon, and it could be the weekend before anything happens.
Okay. The line is off the board there. Tennessee very much in the mix.
You don't have to talk to wear orange and block for Nico. So don't worry about talking, man. Just block.
We talk to Austin Price every week, every Wednesday right here on Josh and Swain. Thanks to Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They're making it unique, making it special, making it just for you. They want to be your jeweler at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. Austin, thank you for the time as always. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.